Apex Legends has over 20 legends and over 60 abilities, and while every legend in Apex may not be top tier, sometimes specific portions of their kits of abilities are extremely strong, underutilized, and even underrated. Which abilities are the dumpster fire, which are god tier? Let's rank them all. But I want to personally help make you a better player, and better yet, it's with the sponsor of today's video. Outplayed is the definitive way for you to automatically capture your gameplay. It's mega simple. All you need to do is download the app and then select the games you wish for it to record from its massive 300 plus game library. After you select your desired quality, you just play the game and the app works in the background, clipping all of your highlighted moments. Then you can instantly share your highlights to your favorite socials. The app even takes out all the hassle of downloading extra video editing software, as you can just edit your clips right in the app. And if this was not enough, Outplayed has the full customization to select exactly what you want the game to record, from your wins, your kills, your assists, times you died, and a lot more. For at least the next month, I personally will be giving tips, advice, or just checking out your clips, so be sure to share them in my Discord or at me on Twitter. Super excited for all of you to try this one out. Click that link down in the description and in the pinned comment for more. Since there are virtually an infinite amount of ability combinations, we are looking at every ability individually and not comboed with other abilities unless it is an ability on the same legend of said ability. Kicking off the dumpster fire tier, and the only dumpster fire tier ability is Crypto's passive, Neuralink. Giving Crypto's drone the ability to scan enemies for him and the team is cool, but it should be something that is just included in the tactical drone. And beyond this, Crypto has no passive if the drone is not even out. I give this an F tier rating mainly because it's a huge cop out, and in my opinion, Crypto needs a real passive that is separate from his drone. There are a few abilities that are pretty poor in comparison to the majority of abilities out there, and the first is going to be Pathfinder's passive, Insider Knowledge. Getting ziplines back and a reduced cooldown after pinging a beacon is cool, but it's very rarely impactful to an engagement and thus makes it a very forgettable ability. Wraith's passive, Voices from the Void, is at a straight D tier, and much like Pathfinder's passive, this ability has some use cases, but often won't ever be utilized in meaningful ways. There are moments when this can help alert you to someone being nearby or if you are approaching gas, but at the end of the day, I find it really is not utilized too often, which leaves Wraith with a big hole for a passive ability. We have two abilities at a borderline C tier at D+, and the first is going to be Loba's passive, Eye for Quality. Being able to see high tier loot through walls is pretty cool, but after your initial drop, it's hardly worth it, and it's more of a convenience ability that turns into a no factor ability later on. The second is Mad Maggie's passive of Warlord's Ire, which scans enemies briefly when causing damage to them and increases movement with shotguns while you are running or while you are aiming down sight with the shotgun. This movement boost is very negligible though, and while it can matter in fights occasionally, it really does not do much, as you can't just put your shotgun away to cross the gap, which is something that most players should already be doing anyway. Also, tagging and revealing enemies for a second really does not add much for actionable intel. C tier are the abilities that are fine or okay, which can have potential moments of brilliance, but more times than not, they are just fine. The first at C- is Mirage's passive, Now You See Me, which gives him invisible reviving and respawning. This passive is good at what it does, but you won't often use this ability with it actually mattering, and even then, players can still track the audio and even see the lights glowing when he is invisible. Mad Maggie's ultimate Wrecking Ball at a straight C tier is just a fine ability. Getting a speed boost from dropping the ball is nice, and displacing enemies is sometimes okay, but the damage is very weak, and I often find that the audio is so loud from the nodes that I lose some awareness, which definitely is not great. Second to the Wrecking Ball is Lifeline's Care Package. It did get a nice buff of a cooldown reduction and some big heals inside of it, but at the end of it all, it really won't help you with your fighting or winning games in the long run. If you are playing slower, sure, you might need the heals, but I find this ultimate not really worth it, as I don't want to reveal my position, and it's very forgettable after the first use. Also at C is Revenant's ultimate, the Death Totem. Pairing this up with other legends can make it great, but we are rating abilities individually, and the Death Totem is not what it once was. Revealing your location with a giant red orb that goes out is the biggest problem, and I find using this ultimate can cause more trouble than it's worth. Bloodhound's passive of Tracker is the first C+ ability, and tracking players can be nice, but I find it rarely affects engagements in a major way, but every now and then it might help you get a rat or better understand which legends you are about to fight, which can be nice. Second is Mirage's tactical decoy, Psych Out. I find this ability to be pretty underrated if you are using it properly, but fighting any knowledgeable or skilled player will make using this ability tough. That being said, gaining some intel as to where enemies are is cool, and baiting enemy shots while you peek is also pretty nice. Caustic's passive of Nox Vision is also at C+, and while this ability is nice when it's working, I find it's something that isn't really needed, and it's not really active too often because enemies have to be in your gas to get revealed and scanned for Caustic. The final C+ ability is Ash's tactical the Arc Snare. I think this ability may be slightly underrated, but I also wish you would get 2 snare charges or players would be bound for a little bit longer. I find this snare is more so just a way to get players to panic move or do a little bit of damage farming in there. And I think this ability could use a little love, but it is good if you are able to make a play on that snared enemy. The abilities that are good, great, or decent are at B tier, and I have actually quite a few of them. But starting off, we do have Watson's passive, Spark of Genius, at B-. I actually like this passive quite a bit, as sacking ultimate accelerants helps accelerate her kit and even your team's ability usage, and the passive shield regen is cool, but I find it so slow that it's pretty negligible. Rampart's passive of the modded loader is pretty good, and if you are running LMGs, it's great, but since it only affects a few actual meta guns that aren't even a top time to kill performer, I can't really rate this ability any higher than B-. Pathfinder's ultimate zipline is also at B-, and while I personally love this ability as a Pathfinder main, the zipline is a pretty outdated way of rotating, and if anything, you're going to be a very easy target while you are traveling on this. It still holds some power to gain height or get angles in tough situations, but I can't recommend this over a lot of the other movement abilities that do something similar and are better yet not an ultimate. Watson's tactical, the perimeter security or fences are a tough thing to rate as they are kind of good at what they do, but in terms of the meta of high-paced action, they kind of slow things down and are not necessarily great for fighting or finishing engagements. But if you are specifically playing ranked or if you are playing slower, this ability is definitely much higher than the B- I am giving it. Fuse's Grenadier passive is nice for sacking grenades and slinging grenades further, but once you are out of these, the passive doesn't exist, which I do not love. If you do want to forego playing with those extra heals or ammo and are actively killing everyone you fight, this ability will work quite well, but again, if enemies aren't dying with grenades, you might struggle to actually use this passive as the game progresses. Ash's passive, Marked for Death, is the final B- ability, and this ability will allow you to ping enemies through deathbox pinging and see where players are dying. I love this ability for pub smashing and getting a lot of kills and just making the match easier, but it's definitely more of a convenience ability that is not really needed in the long term. Crypto's EMP is up, and it's the first straight B tier ability. Crypto's EMP is pretty solid. It deals damage, destroys traps, and even stuns enemies, but it requires the drone to use it and has a very long recast timer. You'll also need to be slightly out of range or out of commission while you control the drone to use EMP. It's a good damage dealing ultimate, but there are better. Similar to Crypto's EMP, Bangalore's ultimate of the Rolling Thunder is in a similar spot for me. It's good at what it does, providing a relief or applying pressure, but its longest timer is tough and it's not really a huge playmaking ability, but it can be surprising from time to time. Mad Maggie's tactical Riot Drill is also in B tier, and it's the best thing that is going for Mad Maggie. This ability has a lot of power to move enemies and a quick timer to back itself up. I'd rank this drill higher than B, but it seems pretty buggy, and there's still other abilities that are better at getting players to move while also providing some damage that also don't lose effectiveness depending on the type of cover that enemy is behind. Loba's tactical, Burglar's Best Friend, is a pretty good teleportation ability that can be used to maneuver around in tough situations. I wish you could cancel the ability after you have sent the bracelet out, and if any enemy is somewhat nearby, it's pretty easy to run a Loba down and catch up to her. Not to mention, she's very vulnerable when coming out of this ability, and once it goes, there's really not much you can do. One of my favorite and underrated abilities in Apex is going to be Revenant's passive, Stalker. Being able to climb basically any building is so nice when fighting and gives Rev a lot of power in flanking. I do think the faster crouch walking is pretty forgettable though, and I would rank this passive climbing higher if it wasn't so situational to having to fight around buildings or other tall objects. Sometimes you just won't be able to utilize this ability. Our first B+ ability at a borderline amazing tier is Rampart's ultimate, Sheila, or the emplaced minigun. I primarily give this ability a decent to good rating because it literally is the fastest time to kill gun in the game. A third-party killing machine, and it comes back very quickly. That being said, I would give it a higher rating if it was a little bit more mobile or useful in a straight-on one-on-one fight. Fuse's ultimate, Motherload, is up next, and this ability gets the slight edge over other damage ultimates that we have talked about because it does come back so quickly, it provides some scanning, and it's even great for a zoning ability. It also does good damage, but it is a pretty easy ability to avoid if anyone is paying attention. Lifeline's passive revive of the Combat Medic once was truly an S+ tier ability, but the nerfs and removal of the shield really make it not the top tier ability it once was. It's still great to turn things around and support the team with the revives, but it's still a completely reactionary ability rather than offensive. Much like Lifeline's passive, I think Newcastle's Retrieve the Wounded is on the same level. While you cannot revive remotely, being able to bring your teammates out of the open while reviving them and providing cover, it's a pretty nice support ability, but again, it's reactionary. Wraith's Portal is up the Dimensional Rift, and much like Pathfinder's Zipline, this ability is a little old old and dated at this point. That being said, it still has a lot of options and creativity for playmaking and transportation without getting beamed. I'd love to see this ability get buffed in terms of its travel distance or maybe its timer. Bangalore's Tactical Smoke Launcher is a great ability, but unfortunately, we are still in a scanning meta, so it does hurt it a little bit more than help at times. It can also hurt your team without you even realizing, which is a pretty big deal, but if used properly, the smoke is next level for support and offensive playmaking. Newcastle's Tactical Mobile Shield is also at B+. In a lot of ways, it's a mini Gibraltar Dome Shield that is pretty solid for team support and moments of relief. It's not the strongest, but it's definitely decent and useful. Rounding the B category is again Newcastle, his Castle Wall. This is a solid ability, I will say. I love that you can leap to your team to provide them some immediate support or gain certain positioning like height. I do think the wall might be a little underwhelming in terms of its health, but it's not too bad. As we move on, be sure to join the community Discord to never play with randoms. You can chat with myself or I can review your clips. Maybe not top tier, but definitely incredible are our abilities at A tier, and we are kicking it off with another ability that I think is very misunderstood, Horizon's Ultimate Black Hole at A-. The Black Hole is pretty sick at opening a fight, especially if you pair it up with an Arc Star or another grenade, and even if it is destroyed quickly, it's still a really good distraction if you are using it properly. The biggest weakness is its health, as you can break it pretty quickly if the enemy is focusing it. Probably the most sleeper ability in Apex is going to be Revenant Silence, as this ability is literally one of the only abilities that can counter every single legend in the game. I don't think it has the same aggressive power playmaking as some other abilities, but it's still really incredible, and it's actually my favorite part of Rev's kit. The ability that makes him chug along Crypto's tactical drone is also at A-, pretty much due to the fact of how much utility this drone really has. Respawning players, grabbing cars, checking teams, reloading weapons, scanning, and a lot more. The biggest weakness is the drone itself and the timer, as once it's destroyed, Crypto has nothing. Seer's Ultimate Exhibit is a great ability that provides a decent amount of time of complete awareness to help your team in a fight. The biggest problem though with Exhibit is its overall visual size, as you're pretty much going to attract everyone within the entire map of your position. Rampart's Tactical Amped Cover I think is also one of the most misunderstood abilities, and I do put it at A- because not only can you boost your damage, the walls are honestly too good at creating ways to hold up areas, make unique engagements by trapping people, or you just get 120 health of makeshift cover in the open. The best part of Mirage is going to be its ultimate ability, the Life of the Party. This ability, if you are using it properly, can do huge things when it comes to creating confusion and providing a lot of laughs. The best part about it is that it does come back in 60 seconds, which does add to the power play and playmaking capabilities of Mirage. Watson's Ultimate Pylon is also in a really good spot right now, as it not only stops ordnance from coming in, it also is a team support ability since it can regenerate your team's shields. This ability has a ton of power, and all Watsons should be using this ability literally as often as it can. The greatest weakness of the ultimate is going to be the same as Horizon's Black Hole. It is semi-easy to destroy, so take care in where you're placing it. For me, Lifeline's DOC heal drone is the best part of her kit now, as she can just drop this drone onto the ground and get infinite heals for myself and the team. It's also really good to use during a fight because you can get that continual healing. Pop out from behind cover while getting healed and continue to drop some damage down range, or get double healing by using this drone and a battery or a cell at the same time. Octane's passive is also at A-, and if you did ask me this like a year and a half ago, I probably would have put this ability in S tier. It's still great to never really have to worry about health heals too much or topping off, and even though it was nerfed a while back, it's still a good ability. Much like the passive, Octane's Tactical Stim is also at A- because the speed boost is too good in a variety of situations, from pushing in or pulling out of areas. You do get chunked away for a good amount of health though, so players do need to take care and be a little bit more frugal with the juice than you used to be. The final A- ability completes the trio of Octane, and this is the launch pad. Pretty much like the other two abilities, it's still a really solid ability for quick rotations and some playmaking, although you do not go as far as you used to, and it's pretty loud when you're using it. We are now moving on to the straight A tier abilities, and the first is my preferred annoyance or damage farming ability, Fuse's Knuckle Clusters. These clusters are so powerful, and having 2 charges is also superb. Farming damage, force movement, keep players away. They have so many uses, although I do think in certain scenarios you can easily avoid the clusters, so keep that in mind. The ultimate support ability, literally, Loba's Black Market Boutique, is so good that I think it is criminally underrated. Unlimited ammo, less looting, free loot, and keeping the pace of play is all so good for a healthy match. I love running with a Loba specifically for these capabilities. Bangalore's Double Time is another one that is honestly just so good for a barrage of different reasons, but pushing in and getting out of bad spots are going to be 2 of them. I think this ability is often forgotten about, but is definitely worthy of an A tier, as it's a passive ability and its ability that will be used quite a bit during every match. Ash's Ultimate Phase Breach is another solid aggressive playmaking ability that, for an ultimate, comes back pretty quickly. This ability lets teams have so many options when it does come to creating openings, and in general, just just moving around. If it does have any weakness, it's going to be when you are exiting the breach. Gibraltar's ultimate bombardment is arguably the best damage dealing ultimate in the entire game. If the timer wasn't so aggressively long, I would be ranking it even higher than the A tier. This ability absolutely has the capability to 200 to 0 someone, and it provides your team with a lot of options when you do have it up. Race Tactical is also an A tier ability, and while it's been an eternity since this thing was instant phase, it's still a really good ability at resetting fights and moving through the open with some cover and safety from damage. I think if anything, this ability could use a buff or two to make you even faster when you are in phase, so enemies can't chase you as easily. Valkyrie's first ability to hit our list is her Missile Swarm, and for a tactical that is more or less a free, weaker arc star, this thing is crazy good. Forcing movement, a little damage, or just starting off a push are some great ways to use this that definitely make this ability incredible. Following this up is our first A+ ability, and this is Seer's Tactical, the Focus of Attention. This tactical at one point was pretty busted, and while it did receive a quick nerf after the launch of the ability, this ability is still very, very good. Figuring out players' health, canceling abilities or revives, and still being able to track them provides you with a lot of awareness, although I do think it takes a little bit of skill compared to Bloodhound, since you do need to aim it. That does lead us into the Eye of the Allfather, and I don't really think one scan ability, Seer or Bloodhounds, is better than the other because they are used for different purposes. The complete awareness and near instant scan info that you do relay to your team is a huge help in coordinating a fight, and it is instant information that everyone can use. This does bring us to the Beast of the Hunt, Bloodhound's ultimate ability. Bloodhound's ultimate is one of those abilities that is absolutely a huge deal. A playmaker, a speed boost to cross gaps, and overall just a killing machine. Not to mention increased scan usage means more team support. Its biggest drawback is going to be like a lot of the other ultimates out there, and it's the recast timer is pretty long for an ultimate ability. Our final A+ ability is going to be Caussic's Gas Trap. Maybe surprising to some, but this ability has honestly too much utility and value to not give it a very high placement. Prepare yourself for a push by an enemy, block doors, or just create a lot of ways to reset through the gas activating. The ability is so good, and if there is any negative, it's probably the over-reliance on excellent positioning and placement of the traps. If you are enjoying the video, or if you just want to support me, just hit the like button. I also heard you're guaranteed to get 20 bombs. The best of the best, top of the line, pretty much OP, abilities are up on deck. All these abilities, if not alone, have it from killing, winning, or support capabilities, and if they do lack one of these things, they make up for it in other areas in some big ways. At an S-, we do have Horizon's Tactical Gravity Lift. It's hard to believe that this thing used to be substantially better than it is right now, but there is something so good about this lift where not only is it a movement ability for the squad, it's also a way to heal up and reset, gain high ground, or rain down fire on enemies. This is one of those abilities that kind of just has it all. If there is any weakness, it might just be the recast timer, which honestly could be a little bit longer, and this ability would still be pretty great. Second to this is Caussic's Nox Gas Grenade. This is one of those abilities that pretty much in Apex has no counter for the most part. Once it is on the ground, there's pretty much nothing you can do except move out of its damage area, and if you don't, you're gonna die. It's a top tier ability for sure, and one that is great for support and also offense capabilities. That being said, literally the only way to counter that gas grenade is our next ability, and it's going to be Gibraltar's Tactical Doma Protection at a straight S tier. This dome is literally too good. Protection, temporary cover in the open, faster revives, and basically something that can be used for everything. Timing is key with this ability though, and it's definitely one that is easy to use, but pretty hard to master and understand when you really got to use it. Probably one of the high skill ceiling abilities in the game, and what is literally carrying the legend itself, Pathfinder's Grapple, is locked in at an S tier as well. It's the movement ability to rule all movement abilities that can instantly get you large distances away in a pinch or get you height to eliminate your enemies. This thing is an aggressive playmaker's best friend, a clip maker, and it's one of those things that is very hard to master, but is a lot of fun. The third S tier ability is going to be a legend who has had a huge resurgence lately, and this is going to be Seer's passive, Heart Seeker. Always on, and on top of this, you never know who is tracking you. While Caussic's Gas is uncounterable, this Heart Seeker literally is unidentifiable, which means you are clueless to being tracked and basically constantly seen through walls. Next up is Valkyrie's Skyward Dive. Probably not surprising, but this is the best ability for a ranked warrior looking for safe rotations or a pub smasher who just wants more kills. I almost feel this ability in itself could carry Valkyrie alone if she had no other abilities. It really has no drawbacks that I can think of, and I think it's one of those abilities that is a must-have if you are looking to grind rank. I decided I want to put a few abilities in an S+ God tier category, as I think these abilities are some of, if not the best abilities in all of Apex Legends. The first is Gibraltar's Gun Shield. I don't think I can stress enough how big this ability actually is. Gibby already is a tough legend to get down, but truly in any fight, if you have an extra 50 health, like from this gun shield, you have a huge leg up. It's like taking a purple shielded enemy and putting them up against a gray shield. It's a pretty big deal, and it matters quite a bit. There really isn't any negatives to this ability, and it's a passive, which does mean it is always on. Second to this one, I think is a bit misunderstood, or at least underappreciated, and for me, it's Horizon's passive, Space Walk at S+. This ability is always on, and not only this, anything that affects movement, a core Apex mechanic, is a huge deal. Increased in-air movement means making yourself harder to hit and increasing your ability to get your enemies down. Also, the ability to slide from higher falls onto the ground means you just start a little bit more mobile, and you are going to be able to take more fights, and again, be a complete warrior with Horizon's kit of abilities. Valkyrie's passive of the VTOL jets are unsurprisingly also getting the God tier rating for me because it's a passive, again, that is always on, and it's literal flying. Anytime you can get quick vertical movement is really just opening a whole new world to possibilities, and Valkyrie kind of just excels in fights and positioning because of this singular passive ability. Valkyrie's VTOL jets almost don't matter though if you can't combine Valkyrie and all of these legends and all of their abilities into the right squad, so check out this video on how to master your ability to take team fights with the right legend combos. Happy gaming, legends.